Enough is never enough. The numbers will never be enough. The numbers will always be short. We do have to balance our lives and still maintain some type of happiness. When you work in one company, it essentially is it's the same culture. It's the same type of thing. Just your department might have different pressures.
Welcome to Voice Activated, the podcast dedicated to unlocking the power of employee feedback. I'm Sean Fitzpatrick, founder of TalentMap and your host. In each episode, we'll dive into real-world examples and best practices, as well as some lessons learned from employee surveys, pulse checks, focus groups, 360s, and more. If people are at the heart of your business, you're in the right place. Expect open conversations, practical advice, inspiring stories from companies that are getting it right, and some reflections from those who've hit a few bumps along the way. Tune in, listen up, and let's activate the voice of your employees. We often talk about hiring like it's a race. Who can offer the biggest bonus or the best perks or get it done the fastest in terms of, time to fill. But what if the real reason someone says yes to a new job or actually stays at the existing job isn't really a transactional at all? Today's guests believe that great hiring is really a human endeavor, a trust, support, team dynamics, not just compensation, are what makes or breaks someone's decisions to join or stay in an organization. Priyanki Amroliwala is the senior manager of talent acquisition at 42 North Dental, a growing dental support organization headquartered in Massachusetts. She's been with the company since 2015, leading recruitment strategy for a network of over 100 practices across the Northeast. Beyond that, she brings over a decade of healthcare recruiting expertise through her consulting work at Healthcare Talent Solutions and recently joined the editorial board of Group Dentistry Now, where she contributes to thought leadership on the future of dental talent. In this episode, we'll explore what she's learning on the front lines of healthcare hiring. In particular, why culture matters more than perks, why rural roles are often misunderstood, and why the best recruiting strategies start really with listening long before the interview begins. Priyanki, welcome to Voice Activated.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you having me here today.
Now, I know you've said that for healthcare professionals, it's not about the party, it's about who's with you on the hard days. Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
It basically means, when we go and sign on to a new practice or whatnot, we're always excited and we're like, hey, this is going to be a great place for me or whatever the case is. But when I say it's not about the party, in the front end of things might look great. We talk about having a great compensation package and having that sign-on bonus and whatever it is that we offer to hire these dentists or specialists into our practice. But having said that, it's all about it's the rough days that matter, right? It's the rough days that really bring you down in a practice. So in the end, it's all about, you got to weigh out the pros and cons of your opportunity and see if that's going to be the right fit. So whether you're currently in a job and you're kind of thinking about maybe making the next move in your career, or you're already looking for an opportunity, or even if you're in the hiring seat where you're looking to hire, all these things come into play. So, a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of hiring managers, they're like, Priyanki, I don't feel like I can provide all these high demands to these doctors that are asking for it. And I agree with them. You don't have to. My point is, when you go through a hiring process or an interview process, it's best to what you had mentioned, Sean, which is to listen. So listen to what the candidate needs and listen to what their quote unquote demands are and take it from there. So most candidates that I speak with, of course, money matters. Money matters to me. Money matters to you. Money matters to everyone. It's important. It's probably one of the most important things. However, it is not the only or the most important things. Like I had mentioned, it's one of the most important things. So this is where culture comes into a dental practice. You know what I mean? So it's all about being in a nice collaborative environment. It's about going through the interview process and truly understanding what the doctor really needs. What is the doctor asking for? And when I say what are they asking for, like it's not just about the money. Like what kind of schedule do they want? Do they want to work a 9 to 5? Are they willing to work like at 42 North Central? We have what we call convenience hours. Are they willing to work evenings? Are they willing to work Saturdays? These are all things that the hiring party should be asking during that interview process so that they know what they're getting into and it leads to a better overall hire. So, I will tell you this, Sean, like, and it's not a 42 North only thing. It's in general in the industry, whether it's a DSO, a dental support organization, a smaller group practice, or even a single dentist owned private practice. Most of them have a huge, huge, huge retention rate, like I guess turnover issues, sorry, not retention, turnover issues on their first year for hiring an associate dentist. And usually the reason why is just during the interview process, they kind of hire out of desperation or out of excitement, and then they don't really get to kind of know each other. And this goes through both parties. This goes through the hiring doctor or the hiring team, and this also goes through the associate doctor that's also interviewing. So it's kind of like they're in a rush, and they're hiring out of desperation. They're just kind of like, okay, well, whoever gives me the best offer is where I'm going. So I've noticed that a lot of hiring teams have communication gaps during the interview process. So if you can just bridge that communication gap and really make sure that you set the expectations and the tone from the beginning, they'll know what they're getting into and they can also make the right decision as to where they want to go. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, you're talking a little bit about how almost slowing down can speed up in that because you're slowing down, you're finding the right candidate. You can hopefully keep them longer and you're not back at the table doing the recruitment process again and so on. But that's hard for recruiting teams, right? Because they get, oh, I got to get someone in the seat. The dentist is thinking about billable time and not having, patients because we don't have, hygienists or support and all that. So how do you get hiring teams to start to have that mind shift, that different thinking around slowing down so they can, do a better overall job?
Yeah, I love what you just said, slowing down to really speed up. So, you're gonna laugh at this, but it's the story of the turtle and the hare, right? I mean, who wins at the end? It's slow and steady wins the race, and that goes for the corporate world too. That goes for the hiring team as well. You're absolutely right. Time to fill is such a buzzword. It's so important, and it is. It definitely is very important, extremely, extremely, extremely important. But having said that, what my point here today is we have to bridge that communication gap. So, for instance, if you were my doctor candidate that goes in for an interview and you've told me some of your, like, let's just say your 3 to 5 most important points. Let's just say one of your most important points was you want to work full time. But your full time is what? Is it 6 days a week? Is it 7 days a week? Is it 5 days? Is it 4 days? I don't know what full time is for you. So even though you say full time, the talent acquisition team or the hiring team or both parties together really need to make sure that they kind of understand what you're looking for, you know? For instance, you can tell me during the interview process, oh, I really want to be busy, which is great. Let's just say I have a busy practice for you. But then what else is important? Do you need compensation over benefits? Do you prefer benefits over compensation? Of course, if you were to choose, you'd want both. But like, what's more important to you? Let's just say you have a family and you needed support. You have like dependents or children that you needed support for healthcare insurance. So then that would be a benefit for you. That's more important. So the interview team really needs to like kind of sit down peacefully, take their time in the interview process and truly make sure that they understand what that candidate really needs. And be it a dentist, be it a specialist, be a hygienist, a front desk, a practice manager, all positions are equally important in dental practice. One person can't survive without the other, and they're all hard to fill. So, yes, the time to fill is important, but having said that, during the interview process, truly spend the time and get to know the candidate and truly understand what the ins and outs are or what they're looking for. And don't be afraid. Like the candidate gets to ask questions. Like gone are the days when It's the candidate that needs the job. Like in the dental industry, we're in need of that candidate. But having said that, I don't like I've seen my teams and I've seen teams in the dental industry where they're just hiring out of desperation. And even though, quote unquote, you might be desperate and you feel like you don't have that much talent, that doesn't mean you should sacrifice that process, number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that you need to really not spend time with that candidate to get to know who they are. So that would be my biggest piece of advice to people that are listening. Take your time to interview. And when I say take your time to interview, it takes like, don't just quickly meet a candidate for 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like, spend a full hour, sit down with someone for a full hour and get to know them. And, it's okay to ask about things personally too. And when I say personally, like, keep it professional personal. And what that means is like, get to know each candidate and ask them like, hey, what do you like to do for fun? All right, well, I like to go bowling for fun, or I like to go for a run, or whatever the case is. Like, kind of break the ice and get to know each other. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of that it's similar concept. Our company, we do a lot of employee feedback, employee surveys, but even when you get the survey data back to the manager, that's the same sort of thing. We don't say, "Well, just don't take their first response on the survey. Ask them, clarify." So if they say, "We want better communication," we tell our leaders and managers, "Ask your employees or your team, what does that mean to them? What does communication look like?" Don't make the assumption that because they said communication, oh, that must mean they want to hear more from the CEO or from me. Maybe it's lateral. Maybe it's bottom up communication. So it's really clarifying and not making assumptions and getting the recruiting process to just ask all of those questions where there's uncertainty and lack of clarity, because it can really then help dive into a better understanding of the candidate. The other thing I thought was really interesting that you said was, particularly probably in healthcare, because we've noticed that in healthcare, in that it's a two-way street. It's not just the organization, okay, we've got this job, we got all these candidates coming in. Just as much now, candidates are interviewing you or your organization or whatever organization to see if this is the place that they want to be and want to work at.
You're absolutely right, and you just said it, like, gone are those days where the employer is the one who's demanding everything. They have their demands right on back, and rightfully so. They absolutely should. So, I coach my hiring managers all the time, and they're like, "Oh, well, um, I don't know why I have to change my schedule to interview them." And I'm like, "Well, how would you feel if someone else did that to us?" So, for instance, I'll give an example. If you're hiring a doctor at your practice and I am your candidate and I'm working, so I'm a working person and I am seeing patients. And technically, we're all here because of the patients. So, we're in healthcare, and our number one priority, our number one focus is to really provide good patient care. So, for instance, if I run behind with a patient and I let you know that, hey, listen, I'm so sorry I can't make it. If we were supposed to meet at 5:30, but I really can't make it until 6:30, I'll let you know that. And at that time, it's your choice if you want to stay behind for an extra hour or if you need to reschedule. But I'm letting you know that. I've seen a lot of hiring teams, be it in at 42 North or outside of the company, like in previous organizations I worked at. The hiring party is like, well, why do I need to change my schedule? Well, the thing is, number one, do you want to hire them? Number two, it also shows their priority. Their priority is their current job. They're faithful to their current job. They're faithful to their patients. So you have to be flexible. Like, you have to be accommodating. You have to be flexible. And if you really want this, then I'm sorry to say this. You do have to stay after hours to make that interview happen. You do have to maybe skip a lunch break. You maybe have to come in extra early. You're gonna have to make these accommodations to have this person come on board, number one. Number two, it really, even if you don't end up hiring them, it really goes a long way because they realize, like, you're coming in early, you're skipping your lunch, you're staying like you're skipping your family activities to stay after work to make this happen. So it really gives them the true, what do I call it, as a red carpet experience. So all those things go a long way because it shows the candidate that you're being accommodating and that you really care.
And you're interested in them. You're very much want to see them join. It's almost like when you think about recruiting manager, and very much the candidates are their customers. So they, got to meet the customer where they're at. And if some of them are working full time and they can only meet after 5 or at lunchtime or before work, you got to meet them where they're at. So yeah, it's a challenge if someone's on a 9 to 5 schedule and you've got these, people that want to meet at different time, but that's probably also the nature of the beast in a way in terms of that. I guess going to turn a little bit to culture. So if I'm a candidate and applying to a job or we're trying to understand the practice or location, and I suspect because you guys have so many different types of diverse locations, some in country, some in urban settings, and you've probably been to a large number of them. What's a subtle signal or sign that tells you that a practice or a location has a culture or set of people that you want to be part of when I'm sort of interviewing for the job? Are there things to look for or things I might want to look for as a candidate?
It's simple. Like, you gotta go back to old school thinking, which is, you know what? Forget all the technology, forget about all this AI enforced stuff. Like, it's simple. You go into a practice. The cool thing about dentistry is it's a human-based profession. You can't do it from home. You need to be there in person. And my best suggestion to, like, any candidate that's looking for a job that's interviewing is to really go in and meet that person in person. Like, yes, the online meetings are great, and I certainly encourage that. My team at 42 North Dental knows I'm all for making things happen virtually. But having said that, the best interaction is an in-person interaction because that human energy can, like, nothing in the world can exchange that human vibration, the human energy. Number one. Number 2, it's simple, like, your gut will tell you. Like, you can tell when someone's excited to see you, and you can tell when someone's not excited to see you. Like, most human beings know that, right? It's it's simple, like, when I come home from work, I remember when my kids were a little bit younger, they used to come, like, flying through the door to come and see me, and that was the best feeling, and that excite yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the practice owner is gonna do that, but having said that, it's true, like, either they make it happen or they don't. Either they come by the front door, open the door for you, greet you in, introduce you to the staff members are accommodating, they offer you water or coffee or a snack or whatever. Either they do it or they don't. Either they sit there and smile and greet you or they don't. So your gut feeling is gonna be the right one, and I think as a dentist, like, most dentists are very personable, they're very social human beings, so they're gonna know. They're gonna know. So it's plain and simple, and you'll see the culture, like, I'll give you an example, like, you walk into a practice, you'll know when the doctor owner or the lead doctor is has a good relationship with his staff, and you'll just know that through, like, if he's transparent about you coming in, they should already know who you are, they should already be expecting you, nothing should be of a surprise. Like, forget about the owner, if they're busy seeing patients, the front desk should already know that you're there, the front desk should already be excited to have you come on board, or, like, should be excited about the interview, and even though they might not be the one interviewing, their interactions with you will tell you if they're actually excited to see you and they're actually happy at their job or they're not. It's like going to the grocery store. The cashier, you can tell either loves their job or hates their job in their interaction with you.
Yeah, do they feel like they're welcoming you as a customer and happy to have you here, or is it like, "Oh, it's a chore?" And you want to have that feeling like, "Oh, I feel like, they're excited that I'm here and happy to have it." That gives you a feeling of, "Oh, this might be a good place to invest time and energy in as a potential employee." One thing you hear a lot about, is this concept of employer branding. Like, what's the promise you're making to employees? What happens, and it happens at every organization, where it doesn't exactly match the day to day experience. So what I thought I was going to get and what I actually get, how do you see organizations closing that gap? It may not happen all the time, but some organizations, have a different, they sell a different story, and now the experience is different, and I got to close that gap.
That's my statement about Life's not a big party because there's a lot of organizations out there, and that's where employer branding comes through. So employer branding is awesome. It's like an online presence, right? Technically, I can show from the outside that 42 North Dental is a great company. You'll check out my website, you'll see the employer reviews, you'll check out Google Maps. All that stuff looks great. Google Maps obviously shows like patient reviews, just so in case anyone didn't know. You can check Glassdoor for employee reviews. You can do all that stuff. You can check out my LinkedIn page, and we have all these cool employer events, and it looks like a great big party, right? That's what I'm talking about. But then having said that, that's like what I painted from you from the outside through employer branding, which is also very important. I'm not saying it's important. It is important. It is very, very important. But having said that, you really don't know what you're getting into. It's like getting a present. Like, you can wrap this beautiful package for me. It can be the most beautifully packaged present. But what's inside of it, I don't really know. It could be really awesome. It could really not be. So the only way to get to know like what you're getting into is to really go through a nice, thorough interview process. I tell my hiring managers, like, don't be shy. Like, feel free to ask questions, but also feel free to be stern about certain things and say, hey, listen, these are the needs of my practice. Like, for instance, I need someone that has to work a minimum of 2 evenings per week. And then don't just demand it, like, give your why. Like, you have to tell the reason why. So what's the why behind it? Are you just being a tough person just because you want them to work evenings? No. The reason why you really want someone to work the evenings is because it helps get new patients through the door. It helps more emergency patients to be seen. It helps the new doctor to build their schedule. Like, those are just some of the reasons why, right? It helps really give the patients the true care that they need at the hours that they're looking for. Does that make sense? But if the doctor just says, oh, you know what, Dr. Fitzpatrick, I'm just gonna like, this is what I need. So that doesn't work. So it's about your communication, but also your communication style and, explaining why you need certain things. And if this candidate, Dr. Fitzpatrick, I just turned you into a dentist. So if Dr. Fitzpatrick says, hey, listen, I've got young children at home, I don't necessarily know I can do it. But again, the hiring doctor will have to say, well, I'll have to let you know, but this is what I need. And then ask them, like, are you okay with that? Like, how do you feel about this? And then if you ask them and then explain the reason why, Dr. Fitzpatrick might say, you know what? Thanks for letting me know. I don't have the answer for you right away, but let me go home and talk to my spouse or my significant other and see what we can do. So, and if the answer is no from the beginning, then that's okay. At least you know from the beginning, hey, if I hire this person, they absolutely can do the evenings, or hey, they're going to circle back with me, or maybe they'd convince them right on the spot. But like, I always tell my hiring managers, like, be stern. It's okay to be stern. It's okay to be thorough, and it's okay to like ask them and explain to them the reason why you need it, but also ask them, like, don't just say this is what I need, because if you say this is what I need, Dr. Fitzpatrick never said yes or no. You just said this is what I need. And they just nodded their head, but the nodding their head doesn't mean yes or no. Like, you need to specifically ask and like follow through on those things.
Yeah, means yeah, if they're just nodding their head, it's something I hear you, I understand that. It doesn't mean I can do it or not do it, but yeah, no, that's a good.
But the funny thing is a lot of hiring parties, and it's not just through like my company here at 42 North. I've seen this in the past. I've seen this through like other industry colleagues or whatnot. You have these hiring like dentists that just say, this is what I need. And they think that the other person is ready to do it just because they nodded their head. So you need to make sure you ask them, and then you need to make sure that they're okay with it. Like, Dr. Fitzpatrick, does this work for you? Are you okay with this? So you have to ask, and it's all about communication style, right? So if I ask you something in a kind manner, it's an example. I'll give you an example. Like, I'll bring my kids into this. If I tell my kids, make your bed, they don't like it. But if I say, "Hey, can you please kindly make your bed? I see you haven't made your bed today." They might still say no, but they're a little less reluctant to say no. And if they say no to me, they say no to me in a kinder manner. You get my point? It's just how you deliver. It's your presentation, how you communicate.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, communication style and communication approach so important in every type of function, and probably even more so in recruiting because of the nature of you're also trying to convince someone about, hey, what we're presenting is how we'll act, what the role, and it's hard for a candidate because they're trying to picture what it's going to be like without actually going through the experience yet. And once you make that commitment, boy, that's a big commitment. It's hard to roll back that commitment immediately, right? So you want to make it work on both sides. One thing, given the nature of your organization spread all across, rural roles can often maybe be a hard sell in healthcare. Bringing people into an area that maybe doesn't have enough doctors, so you got to have some in that area to service the community. What do you think is behind the resistance? In terms of reluctance to join a rural practice, and how do candidates or hiring teams go about reframing it, or could they go about reframing it to help it create a more interesting opportunity in a different way than they might be thinking?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Rural areas, I think you know this, rural areas are extremely hard to recruit for, especially for providers. They are very reluctant to go there just because, I had an open position. I have a 911 position, or we call it 91111, which means uh, five alarm fire. We need someone right away, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it's, in a rural area. So, I actually thought about it just this morning, like, I think about it as putting myself in those shoes. Number 1, I do come from a diverse background, so I think about someone like myself going into a rural area, but, most people that come from a diverse background want to see people that they can relate to, that have a similar culture, that come from some type of a similar background. Now, do they need that all day, every day? Absolutely not. But those are some of the social interactions that they want to engage in that kind of bring them closer to home. You know what I mean? So that's why it's one of the main reasons it is one of the hardest reasons to like recruit in diverse areas, especially when it comes to hiring for providers that come from a lot of diverse backgrounds. Um, and then, like I said, I thought about it this morning. Like for me, if I relocated to a rural area, where would I find the grocery store that I can most relate to? So it's as simple as grocery shopping. So, for instance, I would want to go to an Indian grocery store near, right? Now, does that mean I don't go to like a Food Lion or a Market Basket or a Giant or a Stop and Shop? There's so many, or a Whole Foods. I do all of that. Trader Joe's. I do all of those. But having said that, there's like specific grocery stores that have specific things that the regular grocery store doesn't have. So that's where I would want to like I would want that I literally just thought about it this morning. How far away would that need to be? Like so I really thought in less than a 30-minute commute, I would want that grocery store to be less than 30 minutes from that area. And that's the thing that the rural areas don't necessarily offer, which is why it's even harder to find rural talent. But having said that, the best way to sell these rural opportunities and to really think outside the box is number 1, the earning potential. So their earning potential can be 100% more than what you're going to get, let's just say in a busy area like Boston, right? So I bring up Massachusetts. We're a Massachusetts-based organization, right? When you look at Boston, we've got 3 major awesome dental schools that are right in our backyard, right? So we've got Harvard, we've got BU, we got Tufts. Shout out to all 3 of them. Amazing dental schools. Having said that, we had these 3 amazing programs that give us awesome dentists. But most of those dentists want to stay in and around Boston. They don't even want to go up to Maine. They don't want to go to New Hampshire. They don't even want to go to Rhode Island or Connecticut. They want to stay in and around Boston. So they're not even willing to go to like surrounding states, to those rural areas, to the surrounding states. You know what I mean? So but the best way to do it is really talk to the students that truly, truly, truly need to like quickly pay off their loans. You know, there are some students that are super blessed that, knock on wood, they don't have any student loans. But then there are some students that really need to pay off their student loans. They need to do it ASAP. So the best way to sell these opportunities is to show them the lower cost of living in some of the rural areas. Number 2 is also you have to talk them through the opportunity. So, for instance, dentists are technically working on collection. So, it's a commission based position. So, they're not technically on salaries. So, if you think about it, a Boston based dentist versus a dentist that's like, let's just say in Lebanon, New Hampshire, like the Lebanon, New Hampshire dentist can make way more than the Boston practice. And I'm not saying that the Boston dentist can't make money. Obviously, the earning potential is there either way. But having said that, if you're a newer dentist, it's more easier for you to be accepted as a new doctor in town versus a city like Boston. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
because they need
It's
you in small towns. Yeah.
Need you. It's an
Yeah.
underserved population. They need the work. They need it bad. A lot of the doctors that are in the area are booked out several months to even a year in advance. So the demand is there. So the best way to convince them is to let them know this is a good way for you to build a good skill set. It's a good way for you to build your speed, your confidence, your ability to work with patients, your earning potential, your saving potential. You know what I mean? So it's earning potential and saving potential. So those are five or six huge selling points to get people to go into an underserved area. And then the last thing is also the culture. I love going into practices that are in New Hampshire. I just feel like it's a little bit more slower pace. You're dealing with people that are a little bit more friendlier than the ones that are in a big city like Boston. So I think it depends on the person, but I personally love some of that culture that I see in those practices versus a hustle and bustle Boston practice. You know what I mean? So, it's all about the person, but it's also explaining that. And then also it's about the recreation part, right? So remember, you and I, dentists are technically supposed to work 4 days a week. You know what I mean? They're working 32 hours as a full-time dentist, which is a great work-life balance. That's the reason why people get into dentistry. So now you have 3 days off. What are you going to do? So, what's your recreation in the area? So, when it comes to talent acquisition, it's not just about placing the providers or placing that specific person for a specific position. It's also helping them understand hey, listen, these are fun things to do. There's a shopping mall nearby. There's this nearby. There's lots of hiking. You can enjoy 4 seasons. These are the goods. These are the bads. And that's the thing. It's okay for someone to explain the bads of an area too. You don't want to just oversell. It's best to be transparent so they know what they're getting into, or else you're just gonna have another open position 90 days down the line. You know what I mean? So it's truly talking through these opportunities, explaining them to them what the highlights are, what the negatives are, and the reason why they should get into a rural practice and how, their earning potential can be a lot higher than something versus something that's gonna be in a big city. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a holistic view is what you're really giving them. Not just here's what you can earn, but here's what your life might look like. And here's some of the real benefits and drawbacks of a smaller community. And if someone's not from a smaller or never been really from, they don't think about it that way because there are a lot of benefits of a smaller community that you may not be aware of if you haven't experienced them. Yeah. I grew up in a small town and I just know that I'd go fishing in the morning before high school. I used to go water skiing at lunchtime. You couldn't do that in downtown Boston or any big environment because it would take so long just to get out of the city to go do something. And I grew up in a small place where you could just go do that, in 10 minutes you're outside of the town into the wilderness. So now I'm living in a bigger city and you really notice I complain when it takes me half hour to get, just to a neighborhood that I'm trying to get to now. So, yeah, it's opening up the eyes and showing that what the whole experience will be like, for the time or period that they're gonna be here.
And it's not for everyone. You kind of said it that's awesome that you grew up in a small town so you kind of understand the best of both worlds. But I've noticed that some people that were born and raised in the city, it's really hard for them to understand oh my gosh, wait, I don't have skyscrapers near me or a Starbucks near me. And
All the conveniences that they feel that they use all the time that they don't wanna give up.
so yeah, you're not going to be able to walk down the street to get your boba tea, but you are going to be able to walk down the street to go hiking. You know what I mean? Yeah, you are gonna be able to walk down the street to go kayaking. You are gonna be able to walk down the street to go skiing. So those things you are able to get versus that. So it's all about like, and that's okay. Like if it's not the right opportunity, then it's not the right opportunity. But it's really talking them through it and kind of explaining to them what the opportunity.
Yeah, I like the idea too of being just transparent, the good and the bad, right? And let the people make the best decision because that really then gets you the right candidate for the culture for the long term, and that really makes a big difference in terms of how you're approaching that business.
Absolutely.
I know just we're coming up here in time, and I want to be respectful. I'll be targeted in by 3. So I have 2 more questions. One question just is around healthcare in general. Healthcare is a pretty high demand, some high pressure, and often there's a fair amount of can be a fair amount of burnout in that sector. In that, because you're dealing with patients, you're dealing with people all day long. What is sort of a practice tips or ideas either you use or you advise your team to do to help just say stay grounded so you can balance that pressure and the high demand of recruiting with sort of long-term sustainability of success for the individual.
I love it. I love this question. So, if you were to talk to me maybe like 7, 8, 9 years ago, I would have probably not had an answer or not this answer that I'm gonna give you today. You're right. We're definitely in high pressure environment. Enough is never enough. It's true. The numbers will never be enough. The numbers will always be short. They will never be high. But having said that, we do have to balance our lives and still maintain some type of happiness. And the thing is, be it me in my position, be it someone else from my team, be it a doctor from one of my practices, it's all the same thing. When you work in one company, it essentially is it's the same culture, it's the same type of thing. Just your department might have different pressures than my department. And then the doctor might have a different pressure than what I would have. But essentially, the pressure is there. But how do I maintain it? I will tell you something. I have I will praise 42 North left and right about this. It's been a great organization to work for. And as I mentioned earlier, there's pros and there's cons. There's definitely cons. But when I think about it, and it's what I mentioned earlier, my pros definitely outweigh my cons. I have far more good days versus my bad days, but there's no lie, I definitely do have bad days. But having said that, it's a great organization. And there's a lot of pressure, especially specifically for me and the specific demands that I need to meet for my team. But having said that, how I stay balanced is a few things. I exercise. It's all about like me showing up physically, personally. So if I'm physically okay, I'm mentally okay. If I'm physically okay, I can physically show up to work the next morning. And when I say physically show up to work, I work from home. But having said that, I can get up peacefully and show up and have like a nice, well balanced mindset. You know what I mean? So the exercise helps. I do meditation. So the meditation also helps. I know people probably have heard about mindfulness all throughout the past few years. It's the new in thing, but it's the thing that I'm following. So I practice meditation every single day, 365 days out of the year. And that helps me maintain a really calm state of mind. And when I say calm state of mind, I'm telling you, Sean, if you would have met me like 9 years ago, I,
You would have been frazzled.
yeah, I mean, a part of me is still the same, and it was still the same person that I am today. But having said that, I think I've learned how to overcome objections through my mindfulness, through my meditation. So the more that I learn how to take care of my body, the more that I learn how to take care of my mind through like meditation, that helped me like be clear in my personal life and professional life. It helped me become more patient in dealing with all my doctors, being internally and externally. It helped me just work with like people all throughout different teams. It just helped me become very stable.
Yeah, yeah, it's a powerful tool to have that type of being able to just be aware and help work on your mind and your thinking, for sure.
So I feel like all it helps. And then obviously your diet, like, I mean, These are all simple things. Like, people don't necessarily think that your food affects your mind, but your food does affect your mind. You know what I mean? Your exercise does affect your mind. And I always tell people this, like, the day that I don't exercise, it's not even about my body weight, it's not about my calories. It's nothing like that. It's about my mental state of being. So I feel so much better the day that I work out versus the day that I don't work out. And it's not about the calories, it's not about the weight, it's not about all of that. It's just about my mental state of mind. Feel more fresh. That's
Yeah,
it.
good. Yeah, yeah, that's so important, that exercise,
Yeah,
and to keep it going.
absolutely. Yes.
One closing question for you. If our listeners just could walk away with just one mindset shift about, recruiting and hiring in healthcare, what would you leave them with?
It's simple. People always think, oh, they're all so hard to find, and they absolutely are. But having said that, when you find them, there is, when there's a will, there's a way. That's what I believe in. And there is a way. You can definitely turn every rock, if that makes sense. And when you find the talent, don't hire out of desperation. I understand that you need someone and you need them like yesterday, and all your patients are suffering. All that stuff I totally understand. But don't hire out of desperation. Get to know the candidate. Any position it is, they are all important positions. Get to know them through the advice that I've given earlier on today. And get to know them, sit down to understand what they want, what their pain points are, and see if this will be a good relationship. So the more that you listen, the better your outcome will be in your hires. And by the way, this doesn't even have to be for your hires. Like, this can be something that you can implement with your current employees. You know what I mean? It should be implemented with your spouse. It should be implemented with your significant other. But my point is, this is the process. And if you follow this, you will find good talent. And you don't have to be the desperate person.
Yeah, that take the time, hire slow. What do they say? Hire slow, fire fast, or whatever. I've heard that say, just take the time to get the right person. Priyanki, that was fantastic. Some really good tips and ideas, and a better understanding of what's going on within the healthcare and dental practices around the challenges and opportunities of hiring and recruiting. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to reach out? What's the best way? You have a link. You're on LinkedIn, or is that the best way, or are
I'm
there
on
other ways to
LinkedIn.
reach out?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. They can definitely reach out to me via LinkedIn. That would be the best tool for them to reach out to me through.
Excellent. Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Voice Activated. If you've heard something that got you thinking, don't keep it to yourself, share it. Talk about it, put it into play. That's how better workplaces get built. When you're ready to move from insight into action, head over to TalentMap.com. You'll find tools, resources, and strategies to help you lead better with clarity, empathy, and impact. And make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss any more real conversations with leaders who know that some of the best ideas for change don't come from the top, but from those employees closest to the work.